Hi, I'm Ian Wisekal. Today we're talking about tonguing or articulation on the oboe. The most basic thing to know is that the oboe, like all wind instruments, is expected to start the sound with the tongue. So if you see a note, it is most likely going to start with the tongue. Now, how do we start the note with the tongue? What I like to tell my students is that what we're aiming for is the most efficient motion possible. And as far as I know, that is touching the tip of the tongue to the tip of the reed. So we have our reed, we have our tongue. We're aiming for the tip of the tongue, not somewhere like here, not somewhere like here, not somewhere on the sides. And we're also not aiming for the bottom of the reed or the top of the reed or the corner of the reed. We're aiming just for the tip of the reed. One way we can check if you've been playing the oboe for a few days or a few decades, one way to check if you're using the tip of the tongue, the tip of the reed, is to play a few very short notes, having the tongue stay on the reed most of the time. It'll sound like this. We can feel as our tongue is living on the reed most of the time if it is indeed the tip of the tongue that is touching the reed. We can also check this in the mirror. When we're starting articulation on the oboe, one thing to assume is that unless otherwise marked, your notes will be legato. And legato is an Italian word meaning connected. What we're aiming for is a smooth airstream, and the tongue just bounces along on top of the airstream. John Mack liked to call this on the wind. It would sound something like this if we had, say, 4 B's in a row. Going back to the mirror, we can verify that only the reed is moving and only a little bit as we are doing these legato tongues, that our embouchure is staying consistent. All right, that's all the basics. Now for some tips. I only mentioned how to begin notes, but not how to end notes. We start the note with the tongue, but how do we end the note? At least in the tradition that I was taught, we don't normally end notes with the tongue. Many of us have studied the Barrett method, which came out way back in 1850, and many oboists are still using this today. In the interpretation of the Barrett method that I was taught, on this very first page of articulation exercises, these staccato notes ought to end with the embouchure collecting each note, as if we were saying tum, 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 and not tut, tut, tut. Let's listen to the difference. As opposed to it's quite striking. The first one sounds rounded at the ends of notes, tapered, if you will. The second one sounds like the note was just chopped off. Taking this one step further and applying it to, say, the first Barrett melody, you'll notice that all of these notes, I don't quite end with the tongue, I end with the face. There's a gradation of legato and taper between each note. Sometimes I want more taper, sometimes I want less taper. And that's what the face and ending the notes with the embouchure allows me to do, is add those gradations. So I don't just have on all those repeated quarter notes. Sometimes we can stop the note with the tongue. That is for special effect, like a really crisp, maybe very aggressive sounding attack, or, of course, if the notes in a row are just so fast that we can't possibly collect the end of each note. Something else you might want to know about is how to increase the speed of articulation. I cover this a bit in my warm-up video, which you should take a look at, but a quick recap here is that we play a series of notes in increasing quickness. 4 beats of quarters, 4 beats of eighths, 4 beats of triplets, and 4 beats of sixteenths. At a pretty quick tempo, 120, this would sound like this on the note B flat. Now, if I were struggling with that top end of articulation, the 16th note, say, at 120, what I would do, what I'd recommend you do, is to start with just 2 at a time, then 3 at a time, then 4 at a time, until we get to 17 in a row, which is the full exercise. That would sound like this, on the same note. Then 3, then 4, etc. If you get to a point, say you're trying to play 7 in a row, and we end up with something like this, we kind of are losing some of the speed, or we're losing some of the consistency. I recommend that you write down on that day what you were able to do. Say you were able to consistently do 6 16ths in a row at quarter equals 120. I would write on your sheet of paper or in your practice journal the date and that you were able to perform 6 16ths in a row at quarter note equals 120. That would be a good place to start from next time and keep track of as you improve your articulation speed. Thanks for watching this video. Don't forget to hit subscribe for more content like this.